In this video, we're going to take a look at how simple, quick, and easy it is to use the in-charge payments software and processing systems to create and process lease agreements. We'll start by showing you how to go about adding a client and assigning a lease and setting up the billing information. And then we'll look a little bit at the back end and how you would create those leases and agreements and some of the reporting features of the software. To start, when logged in, from the client management page, we can go and add a new client. So if we've got somebody that needs to be sold a new lease, we simply click Add New Client, which will bring up the basic contact information page for this new client. Now, if you happen to have multiple buildings that you're managing, first thing you can do is you can select the location of the building that the client's going to be purchasing the lease from. Then you simply enter the client's name. First name, last name, and email address. Then down below, you can enter their address information. So here, you would enter the information for the property that they're going to be leasing from you. As you can see, the city, state, and country are all pre-filled automatically, but of course can be edited. You can choose to enter any amount of contact information that you wish for the client. Once you have the contact information filled in, you can then go to the top and click on the Billing tab. And here, you can add their billing information where the payment for the lease is going to come from. So in this case, we're going to use a bank payment. And we'll just make up some bank information here as an example. So you would enter the transit number of the branch, the institution number, the account number for them, and this is all outlined down below as well too, so you can see examples from a void check, just to make it easier. From there, you must enter a PIN code, which every staff that can complete transactions will have, just so that you always will have a record of who has set this up. Then we're going to click Save and Add Check, and we've now added the billing information for this client. From here, if we scroll down, we can click on the Agreement shortcut. And this is going to take us to the actual page where we can assign the lease. From the drop-down, we're going to select the type of lease. You can create as many different types of lease as you wish. These are just a few examples that we've put in the system. So let's say this client is leasing a 2-bedroom apartment. Now you'll select the start date for the lease. So let's say this lease is going to begin May 1st. We'll select May 1st. And the first payment would also be on May 1st. Although if that was different, if you were collecting first month's rent up front with a damage deposit, you would simply set this payment start date to be June 1st, and then the system would not start their automated payments until that date. Once that's done, once again, the staff member must enter their PIN code so it's recorded who created this lease. We click Add New Client Agreement, and this will actually create the lease itself. So here we can see that this is a monthly payment for a duration of 12 months. It is auto-renewing, meaning that after 12 months it will just continue. You can see the agreement start date, the date this was created, and who it was created by, as well as the payment start date. We can see the amount of the lease, and if there was any prorate that you wanted to add. For example, if this payment start date was June 1st and you calculated the prorate would then be 1 month's lease amount, which would be $23.50. The system will calculate that automatically, or of course you can input a number there manually. The admin fee or down payment is there, and if you happen to charge a cancellation fee if you allow clients out of the lease, you can add this here. That way, if this lease is canceled within the term, it will automatically generate an invoice for that amount. Of course, this is completely optional. Now we'll scroll down where you can confirm that the information is correct. Once you've done that, click to confirm, and then we're going to click Add Text, which is going to generate the actual lease document. So now on the right, the system has generated the lease. This is done by setting up the lease in the background, which I'll show you in a minute, and then it simply uses fields to import various contact and billing information in that you want included in the lease. So you can preview the lease. Once you've determined it's correct, now you can capture both the client and the staff member's signatures. Simply click Capture Signature, have the client sign. This can be done with a signature pad, or very simply, this entire process can be done on a tablet as well. The staff member can then also sign. And now we have a completed lease. We'll click Save, which will finish the process of creating the lease, and then we'll automatically open an invoice if there's an amount due today. So in this case, the down payment of $23.50 would be due. So if you're collecting that with a check from the client, you can simply click on the checkbox down below. If you want to associate that payment with the particular building again, just for reporting purposes to track it, then you can do things like record the check number right on the invoice. And now we're going to add this payment to the invoice. So that will now have assigned the payment, and the invoice is no longer outstanding. When you're done, you simply close that new tab that was opened, and we're back to the lease page where we click Save one more time, and you've now finished the process of creating the lease for this client. So we're now on the client's profile. You can see their basic lease information here. You can click Edit to return to the lease and see any of the details. From there, let's take a look at some of the background features of the software. So first thing, we're going to exit this client's profile to get back to our admin page. Let's begin by looking under the Settings and Tools at the Agreements and Agreement Wording. So for agreement wording, this is where you actually create the contract itself. So if I click Edit to bring that up, we can see that the lease document is created quite similar to just a simple Word document. Here you can see it will import the logo and the company name, as well as any of the fields on the left you can use to be imported into the lease when it's being created. And of course, you can use whatever wording you use in your lease document. Once you've created the wording, you can actually create the agreements themselves. So now here, we have our 1-bedroom, 2-bedroom, and 3-bedroom lease agreements. Now in this case, they all happen to use the same wording, so we only need one wording, which will then be associated with each agreement. So for that, if I click Edit, we can actually see how these are created. So you give it a name and an optional description. If this particular lease was only available in one building type, you could associate it with just one of the buildings. So for example, if it was a 3-bedroom lease and only one of the buildings had 3-bedroom apartments, then by associating that lease with that building, you would not have the 3-bedroom lease show up for the other buildings, just to help prevent mistakes from being made. So here we can see it's a monthly payment for a term of 12 months. You can set what the dues or rental amount is, the admin fee or down payment is, any cancellation fee, and there are various other fees you can add as well, including if you want to separate out the taxes to track them separately. There's also features you can use for security with staff. For example, if you wanted to lock out fields from being edited so that they wouldn't be able to adjust things like the admin fee or the lease amounts. And again, completely optional. And then down below, you'll select what the wording is. So if you did use multiple different wordings for different agreement types, you would just select the wording that you want associated with this agreement. And that's how simple it is to create the actual leases themselves. Next, we'll take a look at just some of the billing or some of the reporting features. So here under the reports, we're going to look at the transaction details report, which is going to give us the most detailed information on payments that have been collected. So here, we just run the report for a sample date range, and we can see the different payments that have been collected. So once the leases are created and the billing information has been added for the client, everything happens automatically in the background from there forward. So on the date that the rent is due, the system will create an invoice and then send that payment automatically to the bank to process, and then get a response from the bank, typically within 2 business days if it's a bank transaction, or immediately if it's a credit card transaction. So here we can see we've got the various leases that were completed in the state range, or payments on those leases. So it shows the client name, the invoice number, the payment type, the transaction key that comes back showing whether the payment was approved or not. If it was not approved, it would say that right in the transaction key. You can see the payment date, the payment amount. When using real account numbers, you would see the last 4 digits of the account here, just so you can verify it. And then the transaction fee associated with that. So as a summary at the bottom, for any particular date range, you'll be able to see exactly what payments you collected, what your transaction fees for that, and what your net deposit into your account would be. There are many other features of the software that you can use. For example, when you have an invoice for a down payment or an admin fee, you can very simply and easily correct payment plans to allow clients to make a couple of different payments over a specific period of time on those invoices. There's also various other reports that you can do where you can track all the information in the system. You can also go through and set up staff. So here you can assign different staff and different rights, which allows them to access the various different features of the software. So you can quickly and easily add staff members, adjust their rights, or inactivate them if they're no longer working with you. You'll even have the ability for clients to set up their own login so that clients can log in and have a mini dashboard where they can view their lease and view their invoices. Of course, they will not have the ability to edit or change any of that information. That can only be done by an administrator or staff member. So again, this has been the InCharge Payments Property Management Software.